Good day, everyone. Welcome to Council Meeting Number 10 for Tuesday, January 27, 2026. I'll call the meeting to order, and we just recognize, or at least I'm recognizing, that today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. I'd look to get a motion to approve the agenda. There are no changes to the agenda tonight. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Runge, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Adoption of the minutes. Before we go to the adoption of minutes, there's one small correction regarding the December 30th meeting. Resolution number 2607 and, pardon me, 2607, 50, and 51, they should not have noted that they were unanimous because they were not unanimous. So with that change, could I have a motion to adopt these, adopt the minutes of the special open council meeting December 30th, 2025?
Before I adopt, oh, sorry. I want to refer to the exact same thing you referred to. Before we adopt them for 26-751 on page 5 and page 6, I thought that we were, with the comprehensive review, there was also a city housing plan that we were going to have done before that time. Or did I get that wrong from the minutes? I thought that was in with our job to do, and I just want to...
No. So we have a housing needs assessment that was completed a number of years ago that the city acts on to try and achieve those goals. So that's the overarching plan around that. But we were not directed to actually create a new housing plan. What we were directed to do was go and come up with a plan for long-term shelter needs in the community.
That is covered then in this then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I do have a mover and a seconder for the to adopt the minutes of December 30th with that minor little change. Are we all in favor? Opposed? I don't have a mover and a seconder. Oh, I got Councillor Elliott and I'll go with Councillor Goulet. I had one on this side, but I'll even it up later. So are we all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, now to adopt the minutes of the special open council meeting, January 6, 2026. Moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Councillor Vick. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Adopt the regular council minutes of January 13, 2026. Moved Councillor Goulet, seconded Councillor Vick. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We have no presentations or delegations. We have no items arising from special closed meetings. We now go to reports, and that is bundled into committee, council, and staff. Committee report, January 7, 2026, Financial Sustainability and Audit Committee Chair summary, Councillor Vick to report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a review of our meeting we held a few weeks ago, January 7th. The first topic we discussed was non-market change. Not a huge impact. It will have very marginal impact on taxation this year. The assessment grew by 3.89%. The finance relayed to us that it's busy with year end. At the time, business licenses had gone out and utility invoices were next on the docket, and they're going to be out in early February. Then we turned our attention to the first review of the operating budget, and the draft we were looking at showed an increase of 4.4%. Increase in taxation, bearing in mind this was just the starting point. What's layered on in that, which we should convey, is that we're recognizing the challenges facing our forestry sector, our heavy reliance on industrial taxation. So that's weighing on heavily on our minds. These factors will be taken into consideration as we move through the entire review process of the operating budget. And we'll be reporting soon on a more finalized version of that budget. The committee reviewed the potential supplementals for 2026. The committee removed one supplemental request for updating council chambers to a live streaming capability. Currently, our system allows to record meetings, but those meetings are added to YouTube, usually the next day. Adding a live stream capability where you can still record and save and record and stream, it's a costly endeavor to make that happen. So what the committee agreed was we would keep it on the radar. However, for this year, we're not going to include it in the supplemental budget, and we're just going to keep our ear to the ground with regards to what other communities could be doing to manage this technological challenge, and hopefully we can find a more affordable option soon. We turned our attention to a budget survey, which has now already been developed, and thank you to staff and council who participated in the creation of that valuable survey. It went live on January 9th. It ran until a couple of days ago, January 23rd, and we'll be looking at those results tomorrow at the next AFSEC meeting. And there were no recommendations at our meeting, and like I said, our next meeting is tomorrow.
Thank you, Councillor Vic. I'll open the floor to questions if there are any. Okay, seeing none then, we will go to item E2, and this is a report from myself on behalf of the Governance and Strategy Committee. We had a meeting on January 14, and we discussed the 2025 operational plan for quarter 4, and committee asked staff to combine the 2025 operations plan outcomes with the 2026 operational plan goals and bring them to the Governance and Strategy Committee in February. The committee also asked staff to report back on the status of water requirements to meet health standards and recent communication with Northern Health. And this, again, will be coming back to the committee in February. The committee asked for a council discussion in 2026 to establish the order of priority on large unfunded initiatives such as water treatment, Royal Canadian Mounted Police Detachment Building renewal, and long-term capital plan. On the subject of advocacy, the committee agreed the advocacy priorities for the city in 2026 are homelessness and shelter support, paramedic ambulance capacity, the Highway 97 interconnector, development of the Quesnel Junior School lands, forestry sector health, and Dragon Mountain fuel treatment for protection of the North Caribou telecommunications hub. There was also discussion about our relationship with the CRD. The committee passed a motion that I'll report out at the end with the recommendation. The committee also discussed the council orientation process and agreed that election/candidate information should be shared across city social media networks beginning this spring. The committee discussed that a survey should be developed and sent to council to gain insight on their recommendations to improve council orientation post-election, and that the new council orientation begin immediately following the election, with the next strategic planning session to be scheduled in late January or early February, depending on schedules. There was a roundtable on the good neighbor agreements, and staff are to report out on the structure, process, success, and limitations of existing good neighbor agreements and explore how to improve accountability within them for better outcomes. The recommendation that's coming out of the committee is that the Governance and Strategy Committee recommends that Council engage with the Caribou Regional District to establish a formalized, and I underline the word formalized, framework for collaboration on shared service priorities, agreement renewal and development, and negotiation processes with the objective of achieving more timely and efficient outcomes to local governments. So staff, does that really take the form of a motion? So I'd like a move moved by Councillor Vic, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Councillor Runge, you have a question.
Yes, I do have some questions. Thank you. So I don't know which, is the motion for the recommendation with the regional district, is that the only motion that's on the floor right now? I'm sorry, mine's with regards to the report, so I'll go back to that later.
That's the only motion coming out of this report, is the motion that we just...
Okay, so we'll go with the motion, but I have some questions about the report before we close it off, please.
Go ahead.
No,
You want to get the motion out of the way. Okay, so we do have a mover and a seconder. Okay, are we all in favor? Opposed? Nobody's opposed? Carried. Okay, Councillor Runge, go ahead with your questions.
Thank you, and sorry about that. Reading this report, when I went through the advocacy emphasis for 2026, the discussion, and with regards to agreeing for advocacy for homeless and shelter support, personally, I see that more as how do we look at homeless and shelter support for a better community? So it's not about necessarily, it's just that, because just the way it's put there, it sounds more like we're advocating for additional support. It may not be additional support, it may be just change support, it may be, I don't know, but with regards to making it better for the community, and I just want to really stress that, because for me that's really close to my heart, to make sure that we look at that and say, is there something that we can do to make things better?
I guess in answer to that, Councillor Runge, the advocacy for better or improved or amended shelter and support services goes to the very pillar of providing for a good, stable community. So I think it goes without saying that is at the end of our road. That's our goal. I don't know if that helps or not.
No, it really does help. It's just the way it's written. It could be construed in two different ways.
Okay, I take that as good advice. Any further questions on my report? Okay, seeing none then, we will go to item E3, staff report, admin report 20/26, CanExport grant application for an industrial lands inventory manager. Reid to report on behalf of Coordinator Coppin.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to gain Council's approval to submit an application to the CanExport Community Investment Program for the development of an industrial lands inventory. Funding is available through the CanExport program to support communities to attract, retain, and expand foreign direct investment, or FDI. For the City of Quesnel, the outcome of the project will support industrial investment generally. Industrial land around Quesnel is largely privately owned, with several parcels that are currently vacant or underutilized. The project will develop an inventory of light and heavy industrial parcels with relevant information, including available utilities and services, current use identified by their NAICS code, and land ownership, while identifying properties best suited for future industrial development. And what we mean by that is most likely to be available for future industrial development in the near term. Information from the inventory will be used to produce marketing materials to engage with potential investors. The total budget for the project is $85,000, ensuring that we'll receive a detailed report that will improve our ability to respond to investment inquiries and attract new industrial investment to Quesnel. $80,000 will be allocated to the inventory and $5,000 to the development of related marketing materials, with the grant covering 60% of the total cost. So the recommendation is that Council supports the application to the CanExport Community Investments Program for up to $51,000 for the development of an industrial lands inventory, and that Council commits up to $34,000 to the project from the 2026 Council Initiatives budget.
Okay, thank you for that. Before we vote on that recommendation, I'd just like to ask if industrial lands would include light industrial as well, because I sort of have my eye on potential for the airport. That's why I'm asking that question. So if industrial obviously includes heavy and light, then could we have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Vic, seconded Councillor Rudenberg. You look like you're in the mood to second my motion. Are we all in favor? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Runge, and then Councillor Vic, and then Councillor McKelvey, and then, okay, I got to get a list going here. Put your hand up first.
You know what? May as well. Who cares? I put my hand up first. I look at this. I look at all the cuts we're making, and I have a hard time. I believe we need an inventory. I don't see a cost at $85,000 to create that inventory, so I'm just wondering what the heck are the marketing materials? We know the land, we know the services, we know the owners as a city already, so we could actually create that report, I believe, internally. So where is that $85,000 really going?
I had a difficult time coming up with a budget for this project, I'll admit. I did do a bit of research into some other industrial lands inventories and tried my best to find something comparable, and it's difficult, it's challenging. But two were done recently that are similar to what we're looking to do, and in smaller communities, Kitimat and Smithers, and this was in line with that budget. So for us, the $80,000 is for that inventory piece, the detailed inventory, and the $5,000 is for the marketing materials.
So then I go back to my question. How much of this could we do in-house for, with regards to, like, if it's an $80,000, this costs you X number of dollars extra, that might be a 0.5 or something. How much can be done in-house versus contracting this out to someone? Given what we're in right now, if I were looking for land, I would be doing the research myself. I'd be looking at the land, I'd be approaching that person or those people, seeing if I could get it, and I'd be doing all this groundwork or have my real estate agent help out or my agents help out with this, and this is a bonus for someone, but for me right now, I just have a hard time with, we're cutting everywhere, 10, 5, 15,000 here, and then here we're saying, hey, 34,000 for a report that, I don't know, I just can't, sorry.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Councillor Runge, and you've actually answered a concern that I have as well, because, we've been going through a pretty tough time with our budgeting, and I'd like to hear more on that down the road. So now I have Councillor Vic next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I hear you on that concern. I guess what my tact on this is, I guess I just would like a little more information. Assumably that we're bringing experts to bear who can identify these parcels and have interesting ways of getting a hold of the developer or the owners of the property. And then I guess what I'm curious for, I have two questions. The first question is, we must have an idea of what we're going to do with this once we get this. Can you share with us some potential high-level strategy on who we might approach when we have this inventory?
So I don't necessarily have a great answer to that question. I think that it's having the information even when we do receive inquiries. So being able to quickly say, because most of the land that we have is privately owned, we don't know if there's owners out there who would be open to selling that property or subdividing the property or potential opportunities. There might be property where that's definitely not an option, and there might be opportunities where that is, and it's having those conversations and adding that capacity that we don't have in-house. And wanting to make sure that we have enough for it to be detailed, not spend less money, but get something that's so high level it's not useful to us.
Okay, so part of this process by approaching these landowners, I guess, may trigger, are you saying it may trigger some interest in selling these properties to catalyze some deals?
It might not be immediate, but it gives us an idea of what might be possible.
Okay, and I'm okay with that. I think there's a degree of precariousness to our position with our dependence on industrial taxation, so I am in favor of ways to diversify. So for the sake of $34,000, as long as it's a meaningful exercise that could catalyze some discussion, then I think it's worth it, I guess. And then my follow-up question would be, can we leverage this inventory when done to the manner you're articulating, when it's finished? Can we get CanExport to partner with us to take the next step and take this inventory and actually action it and approach suitors?
I think that would be a further application, but their focus is on foreign direct investment. So when we're applying to CanExport, it's looking for investment from outside of Canada. In this case, doing this project also prepares us for investment that might come from in Quesnel or from elsewhere in Canada or from in BC, but the funding is to attract that investment. So there would be potentially, and we did many years ago get funding for an investment strategy. I think that was back in QC-EDC days, but that can be to identify prospects or investors to approach for industrial development.
Okay, thank you. Next on my list is Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To me, this feels like we're doing potential investors' homework for them. So, and I echo Councillor Runge's thoughts on this. I just don't feel like this is a wise expenditure in view of the fact of all the cuts that we've really struggled to make this year. So I'm not supportive of this at this time. But thank you for the report.
Okay, thank you. Next is Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, and thanks, Amy, for reaching out and trying to, make something like this happen. A lot of my questions have been asked and answered. The financial implications, obviously, it's tight. Sitting on the finance committee with others, we know that. So I'm curious on a few things. So first of all, you said that if we're going to do marketing, that might be like an extra cost. If we're going to do marketing with them, it could be an extra cost later. We're not exactly sure yet, but that's okay. Yeah, please.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, no.
just while we go. So we will get marketing materials or like prospectus documents. That's what the $5,000 is for. So to have, good flat sheets to have information on our website about these, that will be part of this project. Identifying specific players that we can be sending those materials to attract them to these lands, that is not part of this project at this time.
Yeah, it just seems interesting that it's not applicable to Canadian companies. They're kind of handcuffing us on that one, which is weird because it leads me to my next question. If we're doing all the marketing, right, and we can't just be in Canada, it's just a little weird. So what successes? I tried to figure out what other areas have used this and to try and find successes from other communities where it's worked and they did get buyers coming into town. Do we have any information on that?
It's difficult to say. So Kitimat and Smithers are working on their projects now. Kitimat just finished theirs. Their challenges are different there. Like they're running out of industrial land and they're trying to figure out where can they add industrial land or rezone properties. Smithers is looking more at all of their different types of lands and what the mix of residential, commercial, industrial land. So it was really difficult to find a comparable project. The closest one I could find was in Abbotsford, which of course is just giant, it's enormous compared to us. And there has been certainly development in Abbotsford. And we know they're running out of industrial land in the Lower Mainland as well, right? So
Yeah, our situation
I don't have a good answer for you.
Well, that's okay. And I want to say that this isn't on you. Okay, you reached out to try and find a grant. It's just that some of it seems a little hokey. For example, and no disrespect to the company that's to this grant opportunity, but it shouldn't be your onus to try and find out things that are working well. right? That should become as part of the deal. Okay, look, this has worked in this place, and this place, so that everyone doesn't have to do the homework and just go, well, it might work here. There's never been an example of how it does, but, so I don't know. And what's the timing of the application? So how long has it been in play, and when does it cut off?
So two things. So first of all, the program opened earlier this month, and it closes January 31st. But we knew it would be opening for a while. This is an annual program, but the exact parameters were released closer to when it opened. And then it closes at the end of this month, but it does open annually. So if we pass this year, it will be available again to us next year. It might have slightly different parameters each year.
So for me, that's really helpful. If this is an ongoing grant situation that comes out annually, then I think I would feel more comfortable in doing a bit more homework, seeing where there have been successes that might be, close to our range and what we're trying to do, because there are a lot of other towns where mills have closed and there's land available. Mm-hmm. So I would feel a lot more comfortable, especially in these times, that we had examples of where it was a win and how that looks closely for us. So at this point in time, I don't think I'm going to be supporting this, but I would be very interested in doing some more homework for next year.
Okay, thank you for that. My next question comes from Councillor Rudenberg.
Thank you, and I happen to have more than one, sorry. So I equate some of this to, I can remember council going, how come we can't get a call center here? Why can't we get this here? And some of the answers were because we don't know what's available for such investments. So one piece here, there are no concerns promoting, does this seem like you're promoting private businesses or owners? Is there a concern around that? Or is it done in such a way that it's not a direct promotion of those companies?
I think it's knowing what's available and connecting to those private lands. I think if we were marketing a private land for sale that was privately owned, then that would need to be done in partnership with that landowner, with them.
Right, and it does say that doesn't fund mergers or acquisitions, et cetera. So it does say that. So I just wanted to make sure that there was no kind of nuances there. Do we have any council initiatives left over from 2025? I guess this question would be to Director.
Yeah, if you note in the report, it says 105 allocated for council initiatives in 2026. It's actually 25 is allocated for 2026. The other 80, just over 80, is the prior surpluses that are left over from council initiatives.
So, okay, so keeping that in mind over here, I'll flip the board again. So this CanExport Community Investments Programs, once we have this report, is there any links that go back to the feds so that they can use it if people come to them and say, oh, I'm interested in doing this. What's available in Canada? Are there any of those kind of links? Because that would be a bonus to this program in my mind's eye.
I don't know how much program staff glean that, but it would certainly give us information to share with, trade and investment officers, both at the provincial and federal level.
Okay. So I think of this as almost, not quite, but almost the same as how we promote tourism in our community. We spend money to bring people to our community to discover who we are, what we have to offer. So it's kind of almost the same when I think about how this can unfold. And it's coming out of council initiatives. If this isn't a good use of dollars for council initiatives, I don't know what is. If we're looking at potential, of having investment coming into our community by using our council initiative funds, I'm not quite sure how else, what you would consider good use of those dollars. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to go. I have Councillor Runge for a second time, and then I'd like to try to get a word in edgewise.
I'm not sure. I'll do it first. Council initiatives, yes, but instead of funding someone else, give it to someone in the house to start creating this. For me, I still, what's missing here actually is, look, we spend 85,000, we spend 100,000, whatever we spend, what's our benefit to the community? And currently the benefit are fact sheets. fact sheets that I believe we can create in-house. I believe we can. They may not be perfect, but we can still toot our horn to the feds and to the provincial people with those fact sheets. We have the land, and we can use our own land initially, and we can offer businesses to join us, and they give us the facts, so we don't have to pay for it. That way, we're not, supporting a bit. We're just making a community event. I do, and with regards to ideas, I think we come up with ideas. We can already brainstorm. Once we know the land, hey, does a call center work there? Does a greenhouse work there? Does a mini energy plant work there? Do different things work there? We could put those as little bullets for people to think about. We're looking at the land. Like, I think we can do a lot internally. I just, with regard, for me, ultimately, 80 grand, I don't see 80 grand in benefit. So I'm still, I go with, Mr. Elliott, Councillor Elliott's comment with regards to, let's flush this out and see if it works next year, or possibly midway through the year or whatever. We have council initiatives to use for that. So I'm okay with.
Okay, you're okay? So I'll jump in here and just say that I'm really on the fence on this one. And everybody, I'm sure, knows how I feel about out-of-town consultants that get off a plane with their patent leather shoes and their cappuccino and their iPad. But I'm just thinking that really what we're talking about here is $34,000. And how would that be compared to the potential tax benefit that we may be able to enjoy as a result of one sale? Having said that, I'm aware of a recent and fairly, I guess, major industrial land transaction, purchase, whatever you want to call it, that actually occurred without the benefit of a consultant and without the benefit of marketing. So it's sort of a double-edged knife. So I think we'll just, are we ready to vote? Oh, City Manager, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, and I don't want to belabor the issue, but I will add in a few things here just to consider. And I think from a staff perspective, I mean, whatever council directs is what we'll do. If you're not going to support this, I would recommend that you just send us back to flesh this out a little bit more on what the deliverables would be for council that align with your vision. Council's made it very clear to us that an industrial land inventory and development of industrial land is critically important. It's reflected in your strategic plans and was a task that you gave me last year and that I've asked Amy to pursue. The real cost you're talking about here is the 34,000 out of council initiatives, right? Like, forget the 80, it's the 34,000. If you're saying we don't want to hire consultants, then what you are asking your city manager to do is to consider directing my staff to go and create a industrial lands inventory, and none of them are experts on industrial lands inventory, or actually working and creating a document that is going to be specific and targeted towards site selectors and developers. So we're generalists in economic development. We're not specialists. And what ends up happening is other stuff will come off their work plan. The amount of time they'll spend on it, I'm going to say it's going to come out in the wash. If you looked at the salary costs versus the consulting costs, it's 34 grand. So it's either 34 grand of salary costs and we're not doing something else, or it's 34 grand and we're on top of this out of your initiatives budget, which is a priority for council, and we are doing this plus all the other things that are in our work plan. Keep in mind that when it comes to industrial land, we can't move anywhere as a city until we know what we have, even if we don't own it. That's our big problem right now. We need to create an inventory so we understand what's out there, what condition is it in, what type of infrastructure does it have, what type of servicing does it have, what type of size. It's less about putting ideas out there around how it could be developed and more about inventorying that land and getting it into the hands of, as Amy said, your trade representatives provincially and federally, but also to your industrial land developers and your realtors, right? What you're really trying to do is to say, hey, we want to have Quesnel pop up as a potential place to invest because there's a lack of industrial land available in many other parts of the province. We have some here. Consider it for whatever is going on at any given time. And the timing that is unique for us right now is really around the mining sector, right? That would be probably your primary attractant for investment until forestry comes through this. So we need a document that says, here's what we have available, here's who you need to go and talk to in order to advance these things. Unfortunately, the expertise that has that, it costs more than any of us would like. I blanched at the cost myself when I looked at it, but I'd rather get it done correctly, as Amy pointed out, than not, and have something that's actually not terribly useful for a site selector who is working with a major industry partner to find a location to set up a service and supply business on industrial land. So that's what we're trying to get at. And I think we're all aligned, both from a staff and a council perspective, that this is a priority. I think the question that I'm hearing more than anything, other than, of course, the money, given our fiscal situation, is what's the outcome? How do we use it? And so if council's going to direct us and say no tonight, I would ask that you consider at least, hey, come back to us and help rationalize for us as council how we're actually going to use the outcomes here, staff, and then we'll take another kick at the can. I would rather not just have it be a flat out no and then we abandon industrial lands inventory this year, because I am concerned about generally our economic environment, and I think industrial land, as council's rightly pointed out in the past, has got to be a priority.
You can after I go to Councillor Elliott, because he's next on my list.
Thank you. So, great points, and I'm on board 100%. I understand Councillor Runge's idea of keeping it in-house. You're not wrong. Our staff could pull this off, but to the point of, well, first of all, they're not professionals exactly on this, but it would take away from other projects, other work that they're doing. I certainly don't want to just push this away and never have it happen again, but I think that we should be working on this over the next 6 months to get prepared for next year. But the juxtaposition in my head is that we're not supposed to be advertising or helping out private sector in any way, but these are all private sector owned. So how do we?
I can answer that question. So you're not going to be targeting specific properties for the owner. What we're doing is making available and highlighting all the industrial land that is in the community, and it is up to an investor or a realtor to decide what they're interested in. So we're making the information available and elevating it for potential investors and putting it in the right places. That's a big component of this. Some of it is, I mean, we could have a report that sits on our website, but if your trade representatives don't have access to it, and if it doesn't have the information that when they're talking to foreign direct investors that they're looking for specifically, and that's things as simple as, okay, what types of water lines feed it? What is the quality of the water? What type of power goes to that property? What type of rail service? Can you get rail cars? That type of information is critically important in an industrial lands inventory, because that's what a foreign investor needs to know before they're going to consider any location for a major industrial development, as well as light industrial. So what we're doing is offering up the information on a fair basis to all industrial lands. So we're actually on the right side of the community charter when it comes around to benefits for business. We're not actually marketing a specific property for a specific owner. That's outside of our wheelhouse.
Okay, Councillor Runge.
Yes, my comment goes to Joel, your clarification with regards to the cost, the internal cost. So you really feel that it would just be in the wash, or with possibly a report that's not as good?
Yeah, I do. I've been around this long enough, and we used to do and create these what we called investment readiness community profiles that when I was at NDIT, and we would do them actually for free. I think QC-EDC had one at no cost. They were very high level, and the complaint that we got back from communities and why we stopped doing them was they actually weren't in depth enough to be useful to actually the foreign direct investor. Now, as Amy rightly pointed out, yeah, okay, the grant is coming and targeting foreign direct investors, but that's just so we can get the grant. I mean, this information benefits them as well as anybody locally and anybody interprovincially as well, right? So, my experience in being exposed to these is it always costs more than I'd like it to. I would like to think that if I had 2 weeks or if Amy had 2 weeks or more, we could just go out and scout out the land and figure it out. But the complaint I've heard many times over many years and why we stopped doing this at NDIT was the information that was created when just staff were doing it, economic development staff, not good enough for the site selector.
So that's, that's our juxtaposition here. Because, for me, it's like, oh, this is way too expensive. But really, if it's getting the stamp of approval, and then I got to stand down from that $80,000 in my head, which just blows my mind, and go to the $35,000, then I'm actually, given our economic environment, I start to sit more and more on the fence, right? Because ultimately, the longer we wait, the worse it is. Right now, we may have potentials of different federal, different provincial money coming along. If this report were done, I guess the question goes to Amy, how quickly would this report be done? Would it be in these cycles for, prior to the April 30th cutoff for federal funding and stuff like that, so that we could utilize it? Because then that switches my whole, what I'm thinking, because in my head it's giving me more cost, more value for what we're doing.
Yeah, so we actually expect approval on this grant fairly quickly, like within a couple of months. So it's something that we would get moving on as soon as we had approval, and then have it done within a year, so that if there was a follow-up or something that we wanted to apply for the next round, we'd be ready to do that.
Okay, I have Councillor Vic, Councillor Rudenberg, Councillor Elliott, Councillor McKelvey, probably for a third time each. So let's see if we can hurry this through a little bit, because we got a big agenda ahead of us, plus a closed meeting following.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I guess the only other lens I'd like to put on this is this could give us a suite of information for investors, but also for the city and for councils. And I'm mindful of our term. This term is coming to an end, and I think it'd be very advantageous to have a new council be armed with this very important information to perhaps direct policy and a strategic plan for the future council, which is happening inside 12 months. So I think there's some urgency to get us this ammunition now, so the future council can have it at the beginning of their term and perhaps action this information. That was my last comment.
Oh, that's your last comment? Can I put that? Can I have that in writing? Yes. Okay, Councillor Rudenberg.
Thank you. So mine is a much more generic comment about the fact that given the state of where we are with trade, not only with our partner across the border to the south of us, but around the world, people are looking for things to be able to build here in Canada. They're looking for places to be able to invest. And I don't want to be at the bottom of the list when we know what we have here, or once we know what we have here, because we know that there's lots of opportunities within our community for businesses to invest, to be able to create, made in Canada type products. So I really think that, given some of the conversation that we're now having, I still think this is a good use of council initiatives funding.
Okay, thank you. Next, I have Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. And this has been good dialogue, because it's very helpful for me and others, I'm sure. And you're not wrong. This is something that's of great importance for the city, and something that we've highlighted for strategic planning. My concern was that I just don't have any examples of where it's been brought forward, where it's been a success. Yes, you want to jump in again and interrupt me.
I apologize. Sorry. There is one. That was my second thing that I didn't get to previously. So Prince George actually did a similar process quite a few years ago. So we can't find, I've reached out to staff. Staff have changed. We don't know how much it cost them when they did it. But they did go through a similar process there. And I think there has been industrial development, industrial park development in Prince George since then.
So I have one question then to City Manager, I think, or Amy, but I think Joel. What's the value of waiting a year then? Like, am I getting stuck in the mud of waiting for examples, or as we come in to say now, this is important and maybe we should just jump on it now, as compared to putting it off for a year?
The difference is just, how soon do you want the city to be ready to market industrial land, and how concerned are we about the economy and diversification? And I think the answer generally has come back is, don't, get moving is probably what I've heard from council, and certainly what I hear around the community. So it's really just a difference in how soon you want to move. What we can do, though, is that knowing that the grant approval is not going to come for a couple of months, we can spend some staff time in the near term and follow up with council directly and just say, hey, look, this is what we've done a little bit more research. Here's what we've found out and what's worked in other communities and what hasn't worked from some of these reports, right? And then refine this. And then by the time we get the grant approval, assuming we get the approval, we'll be better positioned, and you'll be better positioned and have some of your questions to say, yeah, okay, yeah, still good with this. This makes sense, right? I think that puts us in a better place as staff to also ensure that we are appropriately monitoring the outcomes of the report, because we do not want to create a report. I know Amy doesn't. I certainly don't. That's going to sit on a shelf and collect dust. That is the last thing we want.
And that'll keep us in line for this year. I thought it was right away. Sorry.
We do need the approval from council to commit the $34,000 in order to apply for the grant.
Tonight.
Tonight, yeah.
Yeah.
But like as Joel said, I can certainly come back with a more fleshed out plan, even like scope of the RFP, before we go forward to make sure it meets what council's looking for.
Okay, if you can indulge me, all my questions have been answered except for the good examples, the shining examples. So I think I'm going to flip. I don't do that very often, but I've gotten all the information that I want, and I think it's better to get going now than wait a full year if I haven't heard anything that says it's going to be a big win if we wait a year. And I thought it would be to have a whole bunch more information, but to what end? I'll be voting in favor.
Okay, thank you for that. The last speaker, I hope, on my list is Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, well, that's a lot more information to sink our teeth into and jog our brains. And, we've said that they're going to push the application through quickly. But do we know, I know this is kind of, asking you to look into a crystal ball, but do we know how soon these pros come barreling into our community to do these surveys and this report?
So I think once we have approval, then we put together an RFP, which, as we're doing some more research in the meantime, we can be ready to do that, and then have a request for proposals out, and then usually a 3-week window to get proposals in and make a decision on who we're working with to move forward.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm not hearing any other. Councillor Runge for a 14th time.
Yeah, it's not the 14th. It's just, because Councillor Elliott said he flipped. I thought I already flipped a little bit before. After hearing Joel's comment with regards to the costs and stuff like that, we would actually, in my mind, I'm starting to think if we don't do this, then we actually aren't moving our city ahead, and then it goes totally against everything I've been asking for before. So, even though I don't like the cost of the report, I'll put that out there, but I do like what it's going to do.
Well, thank you for that. And one thing that I've just noted here that just sort of came to mind, that it would be useful for this report to say, I guess, to identify vacant industrial properties. I mean, we've got a lot of mill space up on 2 Mile Flat that somebody's paying taxes on, but there's really nothing on it. And I'd love to see what would come out of that. I got to say that I can see how this is going, and this whole exercise over $34,000 that took more than 34 minutes is one for the books. So am I ready to call the question? Are we all in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, the next one is a staff report, admin report 18/26, Quesnel Volunteer Fire Department call out annual report, Director Reiter to report.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide Mayor and Council with an overview of the Quesnel Fire Department 911 incident calls for 2025. The Quesnel Fire Department was dispatched to 856 calls in 2025. A total of 4,456 firefighter hours were recorded during that time. The incident call types that contributed to the 2025 increased calls over the 2024 stats were as follows. So, I'd like to say that, and there is a report if you need to look at it, but, we had a fluctuation on a lot of calls. These are the ones that, primarily I've narrowed down. So burning complaint calls, obviously we had a significant increase to 223 calls. Dumpster fires, we did have a bit of an increase there. Item fires, which includes garbage cans, shopping carts, miscellaneous items, some encampment fires, we had a bit of an increase there. Smoke report outside, primarily that'll be burning complaints, people calling in some sort of a smoke. It's up to us to find out exactly what that is. Smoke report inside, sometimes inside a building. Motor vehicle accidents, serious, high impact, primarily on Highway 97 north and south. We had an increase there. Carbon monoxide alarms, we had a bit of an increase there to 16. Incidents not found, usually burning complaints. And assist PC ambulance or RCMP, we had a bit of an increase there. I do have a bit of a note here. The incident call types, they don't necessarily affect the firefighters as much as the career staff for the on-call duty officers. So burning complaint, residential fire alarms, sometimes it'll be just as a type 2 call, and that's an officer page, and that'll be the duty officer. And primarily those calls are usually, burning complaint calls are between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. On a positive note, decreased call types. Our medical aids actually went down from 142 to 119 in 2025. Lift assists, routines, BC ambulance, we went down. Residential fire alarms, significant decrease in that. False alarms, unintentional, down. Motor vehicle accidents, minor accidents, that's anything in our city streets and off of Highway 97, down. Structure fires, we're down a little bit there. Vehicle fires and wild land fires, small ones. We had a bit of a decrease there. So, any questions?
Thank you for that, Chief. Councillor Elliott and then Councillor McKelvey.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you. Some of the numbers are pretty disappointing, but it's hard to fathom how many hours are actually going into this. How are we doing? Myself and probably everybody else in this room brags about the size of our volunteer fire department and it being the biggest one in BC. It was at some time. I'm not sure if it still is now. But how are you doing with the size of the volunteer crew right now? Do you have, with these massive numbers, do you have the amount of people that you need?
Yeah, so we had 11 new recruits that joined up this year. We're down a bit. We're still sitting about 35 total with us, so 31 volunteers. We dropped a bit lately. We've had 4 that have kind of dropped out. We do have some new people that have applied, so it's kind of a roller coaster up and down. But right now, as far as the call volume, as far as people showing up to these calls, yeah, we're sitting very well. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's good to see you, Chief. I have a question. The motor vehicle accidents, the serious ones, is 35, and it's up considerably from last year. Do you feel that has anything to do with our road maintenance and what time of year those accidents happen? That really puts you on the spot, but I'm
No, you know what? I
I
was expecting that question actually. So high impact calls are primarily mostly on top of the hill between Canadian Tire and Walmart, the 2 intersections up there. I would say over 90% of them are just driver error. People driving, not paying attention, too fast for road conditions, that kind of thing. As far as our road maintenance, I think I don't see anything contributing to that. It's mostly, driver error.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you for that, Chief. A very detailed and comprehensive report, and congratulations and thanks to our volunteer firefighters for making all those numbers come to life. Okay, so that is enough on that one. I got the next one, or the last one under reports, Admin Report 19/26, Public Safety and Development, City Manager Mackay to report.
And council can see what happens when you get the writer to write a report. It's rather lengthy. I do apologize for that. So this is the third report on the subject of public safety and development that's come before council within the last year, 2 last years, and this being the third one. And what we've tried to do to sum up is take a look at our development public safety issues holistically, and realizing that where we encourage development, no matter what type of development that is, it does have an impact on public safety and overall resident safety, satisfaction, business success, but also how our first responders are appropriately resourced also has an effect on development and businesses and residents and all those other things, which I know as elected officials you hear quite a bit about. This also was a priority for council in your strategic plan, so we've taken that seriously and we've tried to move through. What you're seeing here tonight of the 3 reports that you've seen so far is the one that is focused mostly on first responders. And what is a bit different tonight is we've actually lumped data together from fire, RCMP, as well as ambulance. So you're getting a broader view of the impact of some of the issues that you're hearing about in the community and how that is impacting our first responders. 2 of the 3 of which you fund directly, and the third you don't. That is provincially. And then, of course, with the RCMP, it's shared, provincial and with the municipalities, 70-30. I do want to highlight some of the things that have happened up until this point where there actually has been some movement that council has advocated for and has joined other municipalities for, and the province and federal government are now moving on to address some of our public safety issues in the community. One of them is decriminalization reform. Certainly the province has made a decision around that recently to not renew the project with the federal government, and that is something that council pushed for. Bail reform, we are hearing that the federal government is moving forward on some of that. And then a secure care facility, which was announced at UBCM for Northern BC to be in Prince George, which was something that this council had a presentation from Dr. Kane in the fall and also wrote a letter of support for. And at the same time, we should acknowledge that the province continues to invest in our community on initiatives that meet our housing goals and also support vulnerable populations across that spectrum. And it's not just the unhoused, but it is also things like the long-term care facility at Caribou Field, which we continue to engage with Providence Living, and hopefully construction will start on that soon. And then the supportive housing site at the Grace Inn, the Tillicum Society's housing project, which is underway, and then the Quesnel Women's Resource Center housing project, which is we're hoping will start construction this year. Not to mention, on the market housing side, the building right next to City Hall, which, as you can all see, is really taking shape and looking quite sharp in our community. So there's been some good progress on a number of these things. To summarize, because we will dive in a little bit deeper and closed into some of the HR implications on the detachment side, you have stats here that compare RCMP staffing levels across similar communities. Not all of them are similar. So when we pulled this data together, we included the obvious ones, Williams Lake and Terrace and Dawson Creek and Prince Rupert. We also included Nelson, just for information, and then Fort St. John. Nelson, because it's a municipal police department, just to see by comparator, what does that information look like? What does their staffing look like? I think the short answer is quite a bit more expensive than what you currently pay for fewer officers on the ground and a caseload that Nelson is currently struggling with from what we understand. And then Fort St. John, which municipally is quite a bit a larger community than ours and quite a bit of a larger detachment, but if you actually look at the caseload per member, it's not that much, it's not on a per capita basis that much higher than Quesnel, which highlights the challenges that we've seen in Quesnel. One thing that we know for sure has been said for many years, I'm not the first person to say it, is that Quesnel has historically had challenges with crime. That's not something that is new, and it is continuing, and the nature of it is something that's outside of my expertise, but you can see the caseload per member and how that is translating into challenges at our detachment as well, with the staffing levels that I know our staff sergeant is experiencing through both hard and soft vacancies, and that limits our ability as a city to respond to calls, right? And then there's impacts on it. If you don't have as many people in the community responding to one call, that might put pressure on fire, or if fire is at something, it might put pressure on ambulance, right? And so we see that interoperability impacted overall by just the scale and volume of things that are going on in our community right now. So without going into too much detail, because I'm going to assume you have read the report and you've gone through it, I'm happy to take any of your questions. I'm going to skip right down to the recommendations part. This part of our report tonight is just for information and feedback, so we're keeping this pretty high level, and then during enclosed, we'll get into some of the HR implications, or you can ask some deeper questions of our detachment commander. But as for recommendations, outside of the ones that you already endorsed, more on the development side, coming out of our last report in the fall, certainly we have worked with BC Housing, the province, and other agencies to develop a long-term plan for adequate shelter space in the community to support vulnerable populations and contribute to overall public safety. So I think the wording there is more reflective of the point that Councillor Runge made earlier in this meeting of what our actual goal is on that this year. So again, that is a high priority goal for us, given the meeting on December 30th and where we're at with shelter space to try and move as fast as we can on that. Continue to facilitate and advance the previously identified supportive market housing projects, not only because they're needed in the community, but they also bring investment and construction activity, which is beneficial to our community while we go through a tough economic time. And that's the same with Providence Living at Caribou Field. The completion of the cold weather plan in the first quarter of this year will also be beneficial to deal with some of those extreme weather events that we continue to experience and have an outsized impact on vulnerable populations in the community. One of the things Council's also tasked us with that we're currently working on is confirming clean team funding to keep that project going, because that is actually also an important part of the services that are out there in the community, and something that Northern Health has previously provided support for financially, and we see as a key part to maintaining safety overall. And then continuing to focus on bylaw, and we talked in the fall a lot to you about bylaw and where we wanted to go with bylaw, and Council endorsed our recommendations at the time. You see those reflected here again. So this report certainly isn't about bylaw, but Council's focus on ensuring that it is focused primarily on enforcement, property offenses, and getting creative on how we can deploy our bylaw team to make sure that they're as effective throughout the city, not just necessarily in the downtown area. So those are your priorities without cost implications. The priorities that have cost implications for you to consider this night are on page 30 of 36. There's 3 of them there. One of them is to continue working with the RCMP and the province of BC on recruitment retention efforts to increase the standing member strength of the Quesnel detachment to 22 by 2027 and 24 by 2028. The good news there is we're already authorized for 24, right? So Council's already done that previously. Council's already added those members. It's just a question of working with Richard and his team around how can we get more members coming out of depot, or convince them that Quesnel is a nicer place to live than wherever they might be at any given time, and be here. So that is a goal. As we move up that, by the end of the decade, we are recommending that we work with the RCMP to explore the options to optimize the deployment of members to transition to a 6-person watch. One of the things that you can see in the staffing comparisons here is that we are the only community of similar size that is still operating with 5-person watches. So your watch is the people who are on the ground at any time of day who are actually responding to some of those cases. So that, in discussion with the RCMP and with others, seems to be the appropriate approach to actually address over the long term, ensuring that we're properly manned through the RCMP and policing our community. So that brings us into the options with immediate and ongoing cost implications. So first, you see there some rationale around the watch clerk system for the Quesnel RCMP detachment, and then secondly, the community safety unit, which is slightly different, right? And again, we will dive into these in a little bit more in depth later. But I can summarize, and you see it in the report, that the recommendation is to actually go with the watch clerk system because it supports the longer term morale, recruitment, and retention of members. It's cost effective, and it's a force multiplier. Right now, members, as they've been reported to me and to others, are spending about 40% of their time just on administrative tasks. So that's, however many days a week just doing admin, not necessarily out policing the community, and we can see the impacts of that. So that's on the policing side, and you can see the financial implications there. I'm not going to dive into fire, because our fire chief has already done that, but I am going to talk a little bit about ambulance. As you can see in the ambulance stats, Quesnel certainly has more than enough calls to justify going to a third car. We have what is called a 1 Alpha car and a Kilo car to back it up, so we're a 2-car community, each with slightly different deployment tactics. And if you look at the stats, there's a pretty darn good argument that can be made in this community and why we wanted to add it to our advocacy list for this year, that a third ambulance really should be coming to Quesnel to serve not only the caseload that we already have, but certainly in light of also our aging population, which is relatively older than other communities of similar size and in other places in BC, not to mention just the sheer size of the service area. So that is an area that staff recommend that council endorse, that we add to our advocacy list and engage with the Ministry of Health and BC EHS to get that going. The timing. So ultimately, wherever you land on whether you do want to put additional resources into the detachment or not this year, obviously we're not going to bear the full cost of those resources this year. We spread out over multiple years, whatever way you decide to go, and that is simply because it takes time to go through security clearance checks and post jobs and recruit people and train people and all those types of things. So it has the added benefit of not such a huge cost hit for this council this year, and we get to blend into it a little bit. So with that, feels like a really short report for 6 months of research. I'm going to stop and welcome any questions. And just a reminder to council that we will dive into the deeper HR implications with our detachment commander in closed. But I'm happy to take, and I'm sure our fire chief or Staff Sergeant Wassine would be happy to take any more high-level questions around what's going on in the community, what we're seeing, and how it's impacting multiple services. Because this is something that we hear a lot about as staff, and I know you do too as elected officials, and I will leave it there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Manager. Now I count 10 bullets there under recommendations, including the options without immediate cost implications. Is staff requiring any resolutions at this point on that?
Not at this point in time, no.
Okay,
no, just questions and feedback.
Yeah. Okay, I'll open the floor to questions. Councillor Runge, you're up for the first time.
Oh, for the first time, thank you. Joel, thanks. This is a great report. I love it. Going to page 34 and 35 of the ambulance report. So when I'm looking at the call comparisons, so what's a pre-hospital event?
That would be an event like on the road, like as far as outside of the hospital.
So I'm just trying to, because I'm going to the last table, the final overdose response events from 20 to 2025, and all of our other numbers are really lined up closely with all our communities, except for 23, 24 from Quesnel for the overdose response events, and they drop. And I'm just wondering, did we change the way we reported it, or is there like, I guess that's kind of a weird number because everything else trends really closely.
Yeah, I picked up on that too. I will add, I was looking at the clean teen numbers as well, and those numbers have dropped in the last couple of years too. So there is something going on in the community that might be indicative of a more positive trend, or at least a less bad trend. But I would be better positioned to actually, without ambulance here, to speak to that. Just offer up if our fire chief or if our staff sergeant have any comments on what they're seeing that might explain that, recognizing it's not their service.
Yeah, I've also noticed that too. There's been quite a decline in overdoses. I honestly can't answer as to why. I don't know if it's the type of drugs that are on the streets nowadays, if there's a reduction in some of the bad drugs that are out there. But honestly, yeah, that's as far as I can answer that.
Yeah, thank you. Like, just because every other community has it, so I don't think it's better drugs on the street or worse drugs on the street. I think it almost, to me, it looks like we're calculating something slightly differently, because everything else prior to that trended way higher or equal, and then all of a sudden this dropped by Well, look, if we were taking Williams Lake numbers, that's 100 plus. So that's the only number. Otherwise, I definitely think we need an extra ambulance. I think there's enough examples in this town where people are waiting for an ambulance while one's going to Williams Lake or Prince George or whatever, and someone has a senior has a stroke or something like that, and that hour is so critical, and all of a sudden they're waiting 4 hours, and that becomes actually not quite as a good result as it should be. Anyway, thanks for the report. I'm looking forward to the discussions on budget things later.
Thank you, Councillor Runge. Anyone else at this point? Councillor Vic.
Just quickly, Mr. Mayor. And I think we're all on board on the advocacy piece for ambulance. I'm just wondering, it seems like every community may have their hand out for extra ambulance service. What strategy can we use to really get their attention based on the metrics you provided? I think there's a really compelling argument, but what can we do differently other than sending an angry letter?
Yeah, I think some of that's already started. So part of the research on the staff side through this, and the fire chief has been involved all along the way, was to actually engage with BC Ambulance Service and BC EHS over the summer, and so we did. And before we went any further, had a discussion with them on, based on the stats we're seeing, what our fire chief and his members are seeing on the ground, is it actually necessary? And we heard loud and clear that both from the regional exempt leadership side as well as the union side, that they both actually agreed that this community was well placed. Northern Health provided quietly the same argument. And one of the things that they leaned into as advice to us was not only your call volume in comparison to other communities, but the age of your population, and then the amount of industrial activity that's going on as well. And that if you leaned into those two things, you separate yourself out from the pack from an advocacy perspective. But I think if, other than an angry letter, I try not to write angry letters, but I do like writing letters. That is certainly in the offing as something that we should do, but I think you're going to want to hit it at multiple levels within ministry, right? So it's not just the minister, it's the deputy minister, it's the chief of staff, it's the ADM. Like, you work your way along that line and get front and center. Yes, I have no illusions that we are the only ones asking for these, but I'm not sure that every community is in quite the unique situation that Quesnel is, and can make quite the argument that we can. And so I would recommend that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and maybe we'll see where that lands shortly.
Okay, anyone else? I'm going to go to Councillor. I'm going to go to Councillor.
Stay away from
first,
Martin.
And then I'm going to come back. We're just ping pong back and forth.
He's having too much fun. Thanks for the extensive report. There's a lot going on in here, and thanks for not reading it verbatim. We would have been here for days, but it is good. And I do have a number of questions, but because we are meeting with the members later on, we can get more specific. I'm not sure how we're going to be able to attract more members here when we've enabled the budget to do that, and it's always been a challenge. So I know there's injuries and maternity or whatever it's going to be, but I would like to see more members and then be able to budget accordingly. But it's going to be. So that'll be one of my questions for afterwards. And then a little on the immediate cost implications. You work with the RCMP to explore options to go to a 6-person watch rotation by 2029. Like that, it takes a long time to get those gears moving, eh?
Yeah, and that's just simply recognizing the reality of the staffing situation. I would love to say and bring it to you as council, well, we're going to get this sorted in the next year, but I just don't think that's reality. So I'd rather just be honest with you and say, look, I don't, and I don't think our members are disagreeing with me. I don't see that as a reality with just the recruitment challenges that are out there before then. But if we set ourselves a goal and then we start tracking on it and see if we can get creative around recruitment, retention, and morale pieces that can help us with that, well, maybe we get there sooner.
Yeah, thanks. And that's my exact thought is we kind of broke the ground on the healthcare professional recruitment and attraction program, and we've just got to try and expand it somehow to let people know that this is a great place to be and just kind of branch out. But yeah, we got work to do to get it done before 2029, 2030, if at all possible. But thanks for the report again.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Runge.
Yeah, and thank you, Councillor Vic, for bringing that up. The idea of, I'm talking about the ambulance, getting extra ambulances here in town, things like that. I think another avenue that we may want to consider, we do have a school board member sitting on our council. Prince George has started out a dual credit program with the with the ambulance service, and so they're running their pilot program this year. I think we should be pushing something like that here too. We have a great college that can actually offer these things. If we can, because half of the problem is going to be getting someone into this position. If we're training them here already, the options of having people wanting to work here, even for an extra ambulance, will actually be in our benefit. So ST28, CNC, I think should be in this discussion somewhere here, because I think it actually opens up all sorts of things. That's it.
Okay, no one else at this point? Oh, sorry, I got your name. It says Councillor Rudenberg right there. I'm sorry I missed that.
That's okay. This question is actually directed to City Manager. We do have a Minister of Health meeting coming up early February. I know the dates keep switching. When you talk about what makes us stand out in our discussions, do we have that information about the age demographic and things that we can use during that meeting?
We do. That is the purpose of the meeting, is to talk about ambulance service. The other thing I should have mentioned earlier as well also that I think is important to engage on is with our nations and their aging population, and just given where they're located, and sort of ambulance service to reserve and back is certainly another implication in Quesnel that we can highlight.
So thank you for that, because I actually had that written down, is because given the drive that you have to make to our First Nations communities, and the fact that quite often one of our ambulances gets called to another community for service, we end up with one ambulance here. How is that fair to our community, because they're forced to do their job somewhere else? So I actually look forward to that minister's meeting and letting her know how important this is to us. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. We have no resolution coming out of this. I just want to say that I take my hat off to City Manager and staff. This is probably the most comprehensive report that we've seen in some time, that sort of envelopes police, bylaw, fire, ambulance, all wrapped up into one comprehensive and well-researched document. So thank you. That's a good template for further discussion. Thank you. Okay, so moving on now to council information package. I don't see that anyone has asked for anything specific to come out of the council information package. We have no correspondence. We have no bylaws we have some bylaws that are pending, but they're not coming up tonight. We have no new business, no business arising, so no changes to upcoming meeting schedules, no changes to committee appointments, announcements and events. Anyone? Councillor Rudenberg.
Sure. I just want to remind people about our Winter Boots and Toques event, which is happening February 6th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. It will be located at the West Fraser Centre Plaza in Labordi Park. Free community-focused winter event. Lots of fun and engaging outdoor winter activities. Will feature such family-friendly winter activities as tobogganing, ice skating, street hockey, winter crafts, games, marshmallow roasting, sparklers, and more. No presentations, no speeches, just an opportunity to go out and enjoy the winter. So hope to see you there.
Okay, thank you. A little reminder, I think that council's aware of this. At least we all got an email today that was addressed to each of us council members personally from the Quesnel Kangaroos Hockey Club. They have invited all members of our joint advisory committee, which is obviously all of council and the 4 northern directors, to come to the West Fraser Centre Saturday night, 7:15, for a ceremonial puck drop. So certainly if you can make it. And also the Kangaroos deserve that attention, because they're coming off of 2 back-to-back victories on the weekend, and they go up against Williams Lake next Saturday night, and if they can pull that one off, I believe that they will be at the top of their league and ready for playoffs and hopefully another Koi Cup banner hanging from the rafters. So keep that in mind. Okay, no further announcements and events. I'll now open it up to gallery questions. Anyone? George.
George Henderson, represent the radio station. Address is 852 Reynard Street. Make that a priority next time we get a snowfall. I do have some questions. I'm glad that we're coming up with a comprehensive plan for homelessness. I think that's a great idea. I've heard it somewhere before. On the budget, tax exemption gone for the SPCA? Permissive tax exemption or whatever?
Who are you? Are you asking that of staff? Because
I'm asking probably the finance
Okay, go
chair,
ahead,
but-
Councillor Vic. I'm sorry.
Yeah, permissive tax exemptions are handled at the very beginning of our budget process.
Point of order? I'm
sorry.
But the question, it should be pertaining to something that was on the agenda.
Yeah, it's the budget. 4.4% budget increase. I'm asking some
What
things.
page are you on, George? Sorry.
It was during the finance chair report.
I'm going to allow that. It's sort of borderline, but you're basically asking the status of the tax exemption for SPC.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, since we're losing that service.
I must admit that I don't know the answer to that. I mean, go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, the SPCA is still providing us month-to-month services for up to 6 months. So at this point, we haven't canceled their permissive exemption. We have told them that it will be canceled when the service ends. So that would be next year they would lose the exemption.
Okay. Again, it's part of the budget. I can ask this at the next meeting, but how much money are we spending on picking up the needles for the province?
I think that goes to basically the cost for the clean team, and I don't have that number. We don't have the budget in front of us.
Yeah, we could get that for you, George, and get back to you before the next meeting so that you have that.
Okay, I'll save these for the next meeting then. All right, thanks.
Thank you, George. Anyone else for gallery questions? Seeing none, then I would call for a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor McKelvey and Councillor Rudenberg, all in favor of adjourn. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you at the Roos game on Saturday night.